Hello and welcome to Congressman Henry Cuellar's Capitol Report. Your voice from Washington for the 28th District of Texas.
Every day, taxpayers interact with the federal government on a regular basis, whether it's through the passport services, student loans through the direct loan program to pay for higher education.
Every month, we bring home to you the issues that matter the most. And now, here's your update from the nation's capital.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Capitol Report this month with Congressman Henry Cuellar from the 28th District of Texas, joined by Juan Sanchez, a grants coordinator in our office. Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Congressman, tell us how the 114th Congress is starting out.
You know, it's starting up pretty quickly. There's, we still have to finish some of the unfinished business from last session, which is the Homeland Appropriations Bill. As you know, in Austin, we have one appropriation bill. In Washington, since the budget is so huge, you know, somewhere between 3.7, almost $4 trillion every year, we have to break it up in 12 different appropriation bills. So we passed 11 of them last year, but one of the most important ones that deals with border security, called the Homeland Security Appropriation Bill, was left pending by our friends in the majority, our Republicans, because they were not happy with some of the actions that President Obama had taken regarding immigration. So therefore, what they did is they extended it. They put in some language to defund part of it. It's over in the Senate. The senators having a difficult time trying to pass it. So I'm hoping that at the end of the day, the majority realizes that we cannot shut down Homeland Security, because that means our men and women in green, Border Patrol, need funding. Our men and women in blue, the CBP officers, our bridges, our airports, need that funding so they can do their job and secure our country. Coast Guard needs money. Secret Service needs some money. So there are a lot of agencies that are dependent on this. And again, you know, we can talk about controversial provisions, but let's not do it on the funding bill. We just don't do that. We have to make sure that every year we fund the different agencies, and Homeland is certainly one that's very important to the state of Texas and certainly to my congressional district.
What committees are you on this Congress?
One committee, the Appropriations Committee. From there, I'm in two subcommittees. One, of course, is the Homeland Appropriations that deals with budgets with CBP, which are the men and women in blue, the men and women in green, Border Patrol, Secret Service, Coast Guard. FEMA is another important agency that we work with. You know, those agencies dealing with Homeland is what we cover. The other one is the Transportation and HUD and related agencies, which basically means transportation, anything dealing with highways, with bridges, with ports is what we deal with. Dealing with the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, which are the airports. Dealing with rail also, the agency with the rail also. And HUD, which is the housing. And all of those different agencies, whether it's transportation or housing, is something that, again, is very important to my congressional district. So I'm in one committee called the Appropriations Committee, but in there we have to go into different subcommittees, and we spend a lot of time. So we started the work already on it again. So I'm really excited, and especially in an area like Texas and in South Texas, San Antonio, the Valley, Laredo, where we're growing very fast, and transportation funding is going to be extremely important. Every year we put a little bit over about $3 billion that comes from the federal government over to Texas, but with the growth that we've been seeing, it's just not enough. And we got to find a way on how we can provide extra revenue so states like Texas that are growing very fast will have the proper funding for the highways, whether it's Highway 35 or I-69 or the other roads. Those roads are being saturated by the large number of trucks coming from Mexico. For example, in Laredo, there's always 12 to 13,000 18-wheelers a day that pass our bridges there. If you compare Laredo to all the other ports in Texas, take Laredo out and put all the ports, Brownsville, McAllen, all the way up to El Paso, they're about half of what Laredo does in 1 year. So that shows you, freight, why it's so important for our areas and puts a lot of pressure on I-35. And then on top of I-35, you also have the Eagle Ford, the area between San Antonio and Laredo. That rural area has turned to be a large activity for energy called the Eagle Ford. So when you add those trucks coming in from that area, you combine them with the trade, energy and trade just provide a lot of activity. Therefore, we need more resources when it comes to transportation.
Besides bringing more resources for transportation, what are your other priorities for this Congress?
Well, certainly we want to make sure one is the funding part of it, but then there's areas there that are important to me. Education has always been very important to me. Education, make sure that we have the proper funding for the Pell Grants and make sure we keep the interest rates for loans for the students that have a little bit of resources but still need to get a loan. We keep that interest rate. We've done that in the past, and that has saved parents and students thousands of dollars on their loans. The Pell Grant is something that's important for students that need assistance. Financial aid has been key to me because when I was in the state legislature, I was the author of the Texas Grant, which is the largest scholarship grant program in Texas history called the Texas Grant. So when you add the Texas Grant and you add the Pell Grant at the federal level, that provides a lot of students in our congressional districts and across the state of Texas the ability to go off to college. So we got education, we got health care. As you know, we've been trying to enroll folks, and it's been, we put a lot of effort where in each of my counties, we've had an enrollment effort to get people to sign up because, again, if you're not healthy, it's hard to go to work. If you're not healthy, it's hard to go to school. The more preventive care we can provide, the better it is. So we're working on that. Healthcare, education, and one big issue that will be coming up this year is trade. We certainly know in Texas why trade is so important, and we want to make sure that Texas stays as the #1 exporting state in the United States.
Going back to the healthcare, I know your office has been having enrollment workshops because the deadline is coming up here very quickly, February 15th, to sign up for healthcare. Where can your constituents go to get healthcare or get help if they don't know what to do?
Well, there is a federal website that people can go in, and we'll put that as a part of the on the screen itself. But they can always contact one of my offices. We got an office, and besides in Washington, we got an office in San Antonio. We got an office in Laredo. We got an office in Rio Grande, city between Rio Grande and Roma, should I say. And then we got one in Mission in the valley itself, and of course here, so they can call the 1-800 number, and all that information will be put on the screen, and call the particular office, and we'll be happy to help them out. There are also a lot of partners that are involved in providing information also. In fact, we also have provided some funding to get folks to assist people to sign up. So, again, there's a lot of places that can go in. As an example, in Laredo, you can go to the Gateway Community Clinic. You can go to the UT Health Science Center. They can provide information there. The Laredo Health Department, and there's just so many other places where you can go and get that information. But the website is, you can either get information in person, you can get information on the website, you can get information by phone, or you can do it the old way by writing, put an application on the mailbox. But again, there's literally about 4 different ways of getting information.
Great. What other types of things is your office helping constituents with this year?
Well, we certainly, our role is to be the middle person between our folks that we represent and Washington, D.C., look at legislation, the input that we get from folks, what's good legislation, what's bad legislation, because not every piece of legislation up here is good. There's some that I think will have a negative impact to our district, so we have to look at what's good and what's bad. Number one, besides legislation, of course, if there's people that need assistance dealing with the, I'll use the word bureaucracy of the federal government, we play the middle person to try to get the agency and the folks to be a little bit more responsive, a little bit more customer service, provide a little better customer service to the constituents are asking. Because usually when people come in, they need some sort of assistance. We have caseworkers in each of our offices that do a very important job, and that is to provide assistance, whether it's somebody that needs help with a passport, a veteran that needs some sort of assistance, or a student that's asking about financial aid, or there's just so many different type of cases, Social Security, and I can go on, folks that need the assistance. Now, the other thing that we do also that's pretty exciting, and Juan's been very familiar with this, is we work with students that are interested in the military academies, whether it's West Point or it's the Navy, Air Force. By, I believe, October 31st, they have to file their paperwork. And we're looking for young men and women that can be leaders in our military. The reason we have one of the best military, and should I say the best military in the world, quite honestly, is simply because of the men and women that serve, and a lot of them are good officers that go through the military academy. Tied into that also, we do a lot of internships, both in the district, that is in San Antonio or Laredo or in Mission or Rio Grande. You know, if there's a young student that wants to get some experience and understand how the federal government works, they can go spend some time there and intern at our office so they can get that experience, or they can come up here to Washington. So I certainly want to give the young folks an opportunity, high school or college, an opportunity to understand how the federal government or how a U.S. Congressional office works on that. So we want to provide young folks that opportunity to be part of the U.S. Congressional office.
That's great. I know one of the things your office does is help facilitate grants with the district. Juan, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, in our office, we wear many hats, but my priority, thanks to the Congressman, is to help our district secure grants. So what is a grant? A grant is a financial award from the federal government given to an organization to go about and do a public service. So each of these grants have to be authorized by law and appropriated by the Appropriations Committee.
Why should someone or an organization apply for a grant?
That's a good question, because the application process is tedious. There's a lot of paperwork involved, so you really have to make a commitment to apply, and you don't always get funded. But why should somebody make that effort? Well, a grant is a great way to solve a community problem or even a nationwide problem. It's a great way to address a need in multiple areas of healthcare or law enforcement. So basically it's a way to help your community. It's also a way to get recognition for your organization so you can leverage funds from community partners, from corporations, from foundations. So the most important reason is to fill a need in your community.
And where does that money come from?
Well, the money starts off in the House of Representatives with the appropriations process. In a negotiation between Congress and the executive branch, they set the priorities for the year. And based on those priorities, the federal agencies have to adjust their programs to meet the priorities that the Congressman has set.
Is anyone eligible for a grant?
Yes and no. Typically, the majority of grants go to state and local government, about 80%. And then following that, you have school districts, universities, and nonprofits. There are some grants for small businesses, but those are typically to advance a cutting-edge technology. That's something that the government wants to invest in. And then there's some grants for individuals, but it's less than 1% of all grants go to individuals. So that's typically to do some research or to conduct some type of art or humanities project.
So if someone in the 28th District is looking to get help with a grant, how can they reach out to our office? And when they do, how do you help them?
Well, they can reach to any of the offices that the Congressman mentioned, and we will work with our caseworkers there in the district office. But we assist constituents in a variety of ways. I like to say we help them out through the entire application process, from planning an application to submitting an application to getting an award and then managing that award, because there are a lot of reporting requirements. But it basically breaks down to 3 simple concepts. We're a source of information for them, and that's everything from how to apply, where the money is, technical questions about the submission in grants.gov, and reporting questions. So we are a main source of information. Another example is we give statistics that they can use for comparison to their local statistics. So we can give them national statistics on teenage drug use or pregnancy or law enforcement that they can use in their application. The second part that we do is we advocate. Starting with the appropriations process, we advocate for programs that are going to be beneficial for our community, beneficial for our state. So the congressman in his committees does his best to negotiate with his colleagues to keep those programs funded. Secondly, we connect the applicant with the agencies in a variety of ways. We can do telephone conferences, video conferences, webinars. Besides that, we ourselves go meet with the agencies and advocate on the behalf of our district. We talk about the statistics and the demographics and the need that's there, and we make them aware and ask them how their programs can help us solve some of the issues that we face. So there's a lot that goes into it. We write letters. The congressman speaks to secretaries of different agencies. That we want to get the point across that we have this need and we need to solve it.
Do you have any tips on grant writing?
Sure. So grant writing can be a tedious process, but based on my experience, some of the successful grant writers, they always start early. Applications can take up to 6 months to complete, so they start gathering their data, their statistics. They start becoming aware of the process of how to submit. They're concise with their information. They don't overload the reviewer with unnecessary statistics. They use sources that are official sources, such as the Census Bureau or HHS. And basically, they build relationships with the agencies. So they'll attend conferences, they'll sign up for newsletters, they'll meet with the agencies face to face, they'll come to our office and we facilitate those meetings. It really boils down to relationships and preparation, and also having a realistic goal and a realistic way of accomplishing that.
Great. Congressman, going back to some of the other services your office...
Well, let me just
sure.
add a little bit more to what Juan did. First of all, Juan has done a fantastic job with the grants. We've been actually very successful. If I can just go over a couple of highlights. For example, in Poteet, Texas, recently we helped them. They had a problem with the water system there, so we got them... How many millions of dollars? I'm trying to remember.
$3.4 million.
$3.4 million to help them with the water system there. You go to Laredo, for example, we were able to help them there also with, at the university and the community college, millions of dollars. And a couple of years ago, I think we had them all almost $49 million together with the university and the junior college to help kids go into the STEM program, get ready for high school kids so they can get ready for college, the Gear Up type of effort. And then you go down to the Valley, we've helped other local entities, especially the water systems that we have. So we have had a lot of success with that. Doesn't mean that on the first time it'll happen, but we've been pretty good. If not, we always ask folks, don't give up and come back again. So we want to help the rural areas, but not only the urban areas, but also the rural areas, because the rural areas have a difficult time, because if you have a big city like San Antonio or Laredo or McAllen, for example, they got grant writers. the rural areas don't have the resources, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. So the information that Juan is able to provide and the guidance helps a lot. We don't write grants to make sure people understand. We don't write grants, but we certainly will provide them a lot of information and guidance on the way up there. And Juan has been very good at doing that, and I really appreciate the good work that he's been doing and the rest of the staff.
Thank you, sir.
What I was going to ask you is, I know veterans are a constituency that needs a lot of help, sometimes navigating the federal government, working through the VA system. Can you talk about a little bit what you've done for veterans in your district recently?
We've done a lot for our veterans, and we want to continue doing a lot in the veterans, with the veterans. Let me start off what we did some years ago. Years ago, the veterans from South Texas and Laredo all had to travel all the way up to San Antonio, spend time, gas, time away from the family, and they would all go to Audie Murphy in San Antonio to get treatment. What we started pushing was to have more service at home, whether it was in the Valley, whether it was in Laredo, even outside my congressional district, Corpus Christi, Brownsville area, we were pushing for all this. So we started providing more services back home. So there was a lot of providers that started working with the federal government, with the VA, to provide services. So instead of doing a lab test and you had to go all the way to San Antonio, travel 4 or 5 hours, you can now do it at home. So literally what we've done now is we've literally cut 90 to 95% of all the trips that the veterans were going up north to a lot of times 4 or 5 hours to go up there, and those 90 to 95% of the trips have been canceled. So that saves them time, money for gas, time away from the family. So it's helped a lot, especially the elderly veterans that had to do those difficult trips. Now in the Valley, we started that. We're going to start that in Laredo, hopefully this month, is to do hospital stays also. So it's not only a doctor or an eye doctor that can see them in their home, but they can also now, if they want to stay up to 3 or 5 days, stay in the hospital, they can do it in the local hospital. So that 90, 95 might just go down to almost 98% of all the trips will be canceled. That is the ones that used to go up north. That becomes a win-win situation because the veterans in the south of the district, Laredo and the Valley, can now get their treatment at home, most of the treatment. The veterans up north means that there's less veterans coming up, thousands of them were coming up, which means that they get more space now, and their wait will be a lot faster because they can now see, because there's less people coming from the south. What we also did for the rural area also is we got them a large mobile home, a van, RV, if I can use that, where it was a moving health clinic. So to the rural areas like Zapata and Rio Grande, Roma, Jim Hogg, when I used to represent Jim Hogg, what we would do is that they would go visit the veterans with the mobile clinic. So we've been able to address the rural areas and more of the urban areas, and we're really excited about that. In the long term, we want to move it quickly. Is we're also trying to put a hospital down there in the Valley. The UT Health Science Center with the VA has already established a pretty good center down there in the Harlingen area. All we need is an emergency room, and if we add that, we literally have a hospital down there. So using the vouchers so veterans can get those services, getting the services at home, being able to stay at hospitals and their homes has been a win-win for the veterans. So we still got a lot more, make sure that there's always good customer service from the VA, but I think the VA is trying to be a lot more reactive and better services to our veterans.
That sounds great.
If I can just add to that, the Congressman also, back when we had earmark, secured an earmark for 9 veteran vans for the rural area to transport the veterans who needed transportation. In addition to that, he also secured money for the Tejada State Veterans Home so they can have the most up-to-date facility.
Wow. What kind of feedback have you gotten from veterans in your district from all of these improvements?
Well, veterans, I think overall that we've been a good team. Myself, my office, we work with the veterans. We've been a good team together. We still need more work to do, especially, as we get this younger veterans are coming in from Iraq and Afghanistan, because you got some of the older veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the first Gulf War, but we also got to take care of these younger ones because there are different type of injuries that are coming in. The other thing we did some years ago was that not only did we put the largest amount of money in VA history, but we also did a new version of the GI Bill. After the World War II, there was the GI Bill that brought in and lifted a lot of those veterans because they were able to get an education. What we were able to do with this new GI Bill, it's the same, except now the veterans, if the veteran has already got the education, it can be mobile where they can give it to their spouse or to the kids, so that education benefit will be transferred over to one of the family members, and I think that helps the family that has sacrificed.
Definitely. Congressman, we only have a couple minutes left. Tell the 28th District of Texas what they can look forward to in the next year.
Well, certainly it's going to be I'm an optimist, and I want Congress to work. A lot of people talk about being bipartisan, but when they actually, are given an opportunity to be bipartisan, they don't do that. I like to do the talk, but I like to do the walk also, and I look forward working with my Republican friends. In fact, one of them, Senator Cornyn, has been somebody that I've been able to work together on many issues. Senator Cornyn has been outstanding. There's other folks like Lamar Smith in the San Antonio area. He and I go back a long way working together on issues. I hope Congress, and I'm an optimist, but I hope Congress can put aside their political rhetoric and roll up their sleeves and get to work. When they talk about being bipartisan, I hope we do not only the talk, but we do the walk also.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of bipartisanship in Congress. How do you establish such good relationships with your friends across the aisle?
Talking, communication, that's all. No, I mean, it's basically, I mean, I think it's important. If you get to know somebody, you spend time talking to that person, you develop a open line of communication. It doesn't mean that you can agree with them all the time, but you can at least talk and try to get things done. And we've been able, in fact, in the Appropriations Committee, we have added a lot of provisions working with our Republican friends, from customer service to asking CBP to treat people better when they come across, to railroad crossings to make sure we stop those, don't have those trains block the street. So we've worked a lot by being bipartisan.
That's great. Well, thank you, Congressman Cuellar, for sitting down with us. Thank you, Juan, for all of the information you provided. And thank you to our viewers for joining us for the Capitol Report this month. We hope to see you all soon.